John chapter 6, 1 through 15. After this, Jesus crossed over to the far side of the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. A huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. Then Jesus climbed a hill and sat down with his disciples around him. It was nearly the time for the Jewish Passover celebration. Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, he asked, "Where can we buy bread to feed all these people?" He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, "Even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them." Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what good is that with this huge crowd?" "Tell everyone to sit down," Jesus said. So they all sat down on the grassy slopes. The men alone numbered about 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and distributed them to the people. Afterward, he did the same thing with the fish. They all ate as much as they wanted. After everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, "Now gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted." So they picked up the pieces and filled the 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves. When the people saw him do this miraculous sign, they exclaimed, "Surely he is the prophet we have been expecting." When Jesus saw that they were ready to force him to be their king, he slipped away into the hills by himself. What's really interesting is Matthew gives us a key into this, that this is actually the first time Jesus fed the 5,000, but then later he fed the 4,000. You can read this in Matthew 14 and chapter 15. One of the lessons that we learn is that Jesus can use the little faith that we have and multiply it. The little boy only had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, yet Jesus used it to feed 5,000 people. You might feel like you don't have enough to offer God, or you might feel like you only have a little bit of faith to give, or a little bit of time to spend with him, or a little bit of skill to give to him, but he can actually use that to bless more people than you will know. This is the 4th miracle that Jesus did in the book of John, as we know that there's 7 signs in the book of John. We also, perfect, there's a little key here that tells us in chapter 6, verse 12, after everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples to gather the leftovers, and they picked up 12 baskets full, for one for each disciple. They had their own basket. You see, God made no mistake. He had the perfect provision to even take care of his disciples after feeding everyone else. And when you spend time ministering to others, God will provide for you. When you pour out for others, God will pour into you. So when the people saw this miracle, they said, "This is the prophet we have been expecting." Meaning that this is the Messiah that was spoken about, the prophet spoken about in Deuteronomy 18, who was a prophet like Moses. So they actually went to make him king. They wanted to exalt him. They were so amazed at Jesus, but he actually hid himself from the crowds. This is a powerful story.